It was the eve of her wedding and she was so happy. So, it is finally happening, she said to herself, giggling in front of the mirror. She snuck out of her hotel room, where she had lodged with family and friends, to see her fiancé in a lodge opposite their hotel. The hotel and the lodge were owned by her father, so she knew every part of it. She disguised herself like an old woman, tying wrapper to cover herself properly, to avoid being recognized. Daddy will be very disappointed with me if he finds out I went to see Cross in his room, Anita thought to herself. Even with the heavy security guarding the hotel, she managed to sneak herself out. She ran to Cross's lodge. It was a very big lodge, where her father had instructed Cross, his friends, relatives, and all the children from Anita's foundation and orphanage to stay. Omar and Franca were also in this same lodge to help in organizing the orphans. When she got there, everywhere was quiet, so she tiptoed to the lounge, because that was where Cross's room was. She walked in on Cross, her fiancé, having a threesome with her two bosom friends, who were her bridesmaids. She wanted to run out of the lodge, but they wouldn't allow that, because her leaving to tell what she just saw will spoil their future for them. So they all rushed her. Cross covered her mouth with cloth and they all pressed her face with a pillow, until she was gone. They quickly wrapped her in a bedsheet and took her to the beachside, dug a very deep grave and buried her there. Anita was an only daughter to one of the richest men in their city. She was so humble and kind that she wanted to help every poor person she ever came across. This made her father to open a charitable foundation for her, that took care of the orphans in the society. This was where she met her two bosom friends, Omo and Franca. She made sure they had the best education by attending the same school she went to, going on vacations with her. They even shop with her. In fact, they were more like her sisters. She met Cross, her fiancé, at an event, not knowing that Omo and Franca had arranged him for her. 2 years after meeting him, they were set to get married few hours before she caught them. Her father had already paid for their admission for masters in a foreign university, plus the monthly allowance he gives to each of them. So, allowing Anita to ruin all that for them was a no. My two younger brothers are under her foundation, Cross said angrily. Her dad had already promised to hand over the position of director to me in his companies based abroad. While his son Ike, Anita's brother, manages their father's oil wells here in Nigeria. How can I allow all these to pass me by, because Anita was being stupid? Cross said angrily. For the last time, let's get our stories straight. The last time we all saw Anita was during the bachelor's dinner party, Omar said while looking at Cross and Franca. Cross signed and said, we have to behave well so that her disappearance will not affect our chances with her family. After much rehearsal, they went back to the place they buried her, to make sure it doesn't look suspicious in any way. Cross's lodge was closer to a beach, so they buried Anita at the part of the beach where no one goes. She is there and the ground is smooth, so no one will notice anything, even if anyone goes there, Cross said, frowning. Remember, since her father forbade her from seeing me today, I believe she must have snuck out, so let's keep our cool, Cross said, and they all agree and swore not to reveal what they had done, no matter what happens. Few hours later, Cross and his groomsmen had lined up at the altar waiting for Anita. She was already 30 minutes late. Cross knew she won't be showing up, but had to pretend. He was surprised when the flower girls lined up with their little baskets in their hands, throwing colorful flowers in the air, and Anita walking in majestically with her bridal train. Cross started fidgeting and sweating. Everyone who noticed it felt he was having wedding jittery. He must really love her, some of the guests murmured. When it was time to kiss the bride, Anita pulled Cross closer and whispered, "You have killed Anita, guess who I am," and smiled. Cross started shaking with fear, but Anita whispered again, "You want them to know? Keep it together now." Cross looked over at where Omo and Franca were standing. They looked at him scared too. Omo and Franca quickly ran to the restroom to catch their breath. "That is not Anita, I am sure of that. She is dead. As a doctor, I know she died. Besides, she had been buried for hours when we went back to check her again," Franca said, pacing about in the restroom. "Then who is that?" Omo asked, sounding scared. "We need to find out." First of all, we have to maintain and compose ourselves well. I don't want anyone to notice anything. Cross is losing it already, Franca said and opened the door to leave. Throughout the wedding reception, Omo and Franca were looking at Anita. She was smiling all through. They noticed she didn't take anything, even water. She was just looking around as if she was looking at another set of people in the hall. Her father danced all through the reception. He was very happy. No one noticed Anita's odd behavior because everyone was in high spirit. After the wedding ceremony, Anita cancelled all their travel plans, including their honeymoon. Cross was so scared to complain. He was looking for an opportunity to go and check if Anita's corpse was still where they buried it. Cross eventually got a chance to sneak out later the next day. "Hello Franca, you and Omo should come and meet me at the beach. Let us check if Anita is still buried there and know who we are dealing with," Cross said over the phone and entered his car. He drove off and switched his phone off. When they got there, they waited until it was very dark. They dug the grave and saw Anita's corpse already smelling and still wrapped in the bedsheet. They both looked at one another and shouted, "Who is that person parading as Anita? That is definitely not Anita." When Cross and Anita got home later in the night, Anita's father handed over the key to a new house he had just bought for them. "Since Anita have refused to travel and live outside the country as we had earlier planned, I have bought this mansion for both of you to start your life here." Anita jumped and hugged her father smiling. Cross managed to smile, but this was not his plan. He wanted to travel out by all means. A look at Anita's face, and he saw a cold white face of a person that have been dead for long. He shouted Jesus, and everyone turned and looked at him. He uneasily smiled and apologized for startling them. "I thought I saw something," Cross lied. Cross and Anita were supposed to start their new life as a couple in their new mansion. But Cross was so scared of spending even a moment alone with Anita. He had no choice. Everyone was already thinking there was something off about him, so sleeping outside his new home might raise another suspicion. It was 9 p.m. and Cross took a sleeping pill to be able to sleep deeply, as he was so scared. Anita was still watching television. They have not spoken to each other since they got home. A very loud breathing sound, loud enough to wake Cross, who was sleeping like a log of wood up. Cross jumped on his feet and noticed the room was pitch dark. "Who is breathing like that?" he almost shouted, while rushing to put on the light. He saw Anita, sitting on her side of the bed, looking at him without blinking. Cross ran out of the house crying. He wanted to scream, but controlled himself. "What will I say is pursuing me if anyone asks?" He thought to himself and just stood beside his car. Their security man quickly ran to him and asked, "Sir, is there a problem? I thought I heard someone running." Cross looked at him with so much anger and said, "Get out of here." Cross walked into the house and sneaked into the guest room downstairs. He called Franca on the phone. "Cross, why are you calling at this odd hour? Is everything all right?" Franca asked, sounding concerned. "It's Anita. She doesn't sleep. She is just awake watching me while I sleep. I am so scared for my life. I don't know who that is. I am losing my mind right now. This is not how I want my life to be. Please, we need to find a solution to this. I cannot continue like this. This is just our first night, and I am already so exhausted." Cross kept talking for several minutes. Franca promised to visit with Omo in 2 days' time. When it was morning, Cross sneaked into their room, but Anita had left the bed. He looked around for her, but didn't see her. He was about to check in the restroom, when he saw Anita standing close to the wall, staring into space, looking lost. He ran out again, entered his car and drove off. He went straight to his partners in crime. "I think I am losing my mind," Cross said, pacing about. "Anita is not a human being, and we cannot continue to overlook that. She has not said anything to me," Cross said angrily. "But did you ask her any question?" Franca asked, frowning. "How can I ask her when I know she is obviously not Anita?" Cross said, shouting. "Please, both of you should follow me to my house. Let's find out who that is," Cross pleaded. Omo and Franca agreed and followed Cross home. However, when they got home, Anita was nowhere to be found. Cross looked around and saw her car parked outside. He also saw the man who just resumed as Anita's driver, sleeping in the security post. He didn't want to make it obvious that he was looking for Anita. So he asked the security if Anita had left the house since he wasn't around, but the security man was surprised and said, "No. I have been here since morning, and I even locked the gate, so no one had gone out." He was about to ask Cross why he was asking, when Cross angrily left and went inside the house. They searched every part of the house, but Anita was not in the house. Cross started breathing fast, saying, "This is what I am saying, I cannot continue like this. I will leave this house for her and disappear. I don't know who I am living with. I will suggest, since she is not trying to harm you, why not ignore her and live your life? Since you are at home for now because both of you are supposed to be on honeymoon," Franca said, smiling at Cross. "Remember, you will soon start working in her father's company, so you will hardly be home by then." Franca's suggestion seemed to have made Cross feel better, because he smiled and said, "You are right. Let me ignore the idiot." Later the same night, Cross saw Anita watching television, smiling at him. He screamed and ran outside crying. "What did I get myself into?" he asked, panting and sobbing. That was when he vowed to run away from the whole thing. "At least I have saved enough money, since I am not traveling abroad again. There is nothing special here for me to be suffering like this." The next day, Franca was hanging out with her fiancé and his friends, when Anita walked into the restaurant and walked straight to her. "What are you doing here?" Franca asked Anita, looking very scared. Anita simply smiled and didn't utter a word. Franca kept asking her, raising her voice. That was when her fiancé shouted, "Babe, who are you talking to?" It then dawned on Franca that she was the only one seeing Anita. She saw Anita pouring a whitish substance into her drink and started screaming, "You want to kill me? What are you doing?" Her fiancé held her and she kept repeating, "Are you not seeing Anita? She is just there." Franca's fiancé ran after her, but she got into her car and drove off, leaving her man and their guests stunned. "Is she okay?" Franca's fiancé's best friend asked, but got no response. She drove straight to Cross's house and started banging at the door. "Where is Anita?" When she got in, she saw Anita sitting before the television, watching and smiling. "This game has to stop. Why are you troubling me?" Franca asked Anita, shouting at the top of her voice. Anita stood up and was about to leave when Franca picked a flower vase and hit her on the head. That was when Anita turned into who she really was, a scary-looking water spirit. She flung Franca away and she passed out. Rushed to pick Cross up, but stopped halfway and shouted, "How dare you? You killed an innocent woman and you dare to desecrate our territory with her blood. Water is very sacred and shouldn't be soiled. How could you try such a thing? Anita follows you about crying, wondering what she did to three of you. She cannot find rest, because everyone believes she is still alive. I followed you home on that day. I am going to destroy all of you. Anita does not even want me to, but it is not her fight anymore. It is my fight, because you came into my territory at the wrong hour to dare me." The water spirit returned to being Anita again, smiled and sat before the television smiling. Cross started shivering with fear. "What have 5 minutes pleasure done to me? Where do I go from here?" He ran inside his room, packed his bags and ran out of the house, leaving Franca behind. He drove away saying, "I will stay very far away from you and anything that concerns you, Anita." He thought Anita will follow him as he was driving off, but she didn't. When he realized Anita wasn't following him, he packed by the roadside and wept bitterly. "I will keep moving," he told himself and drove off. Franca woke up hours later and saw Anita sitting beside her on the couch where she had kept her, watching her while water was pouring from her face. Franca shouted, "Help, help," and ran out of the house. Anita laughed so hard, but didn't follow her. Franca got home at night crying, but was surprised to see Omo looking through the window of their apartment. "What is going on?" she asked Omo, surprised. "I came home an hour ago and heard the sound of the television. I wanted to open the door, but decided to look in through the window, in case it was an intruder, since I didn't see your car and I know you don't like watching television. only for me to see Anita. Omo started crying. I have been looking over my shoulder since Joe, your fiancé, called to tell me how you ran out on them today, calling Anita's name. I am so tired of all this. Let us just leave, run away from this life to a place no one knows us and start afresh. I think Cross already did that, because I didn't see his car after waking up in his house hours ago, Franca said and started crying. They were about to leave when Oma's phone rang. Hello, you contacted me on Instagram about a spiritual challenge you and your friends are having. Well, meet me tomorrow at the address I already sent to this number, the caller said and hung up. Yes, we will be free soon, Oma shouted. Who was that? Franca asked. She is a palm reader that is popular on Instagram. She will help us take care of Anita, Oma said boastfully. Meanwhile, Anita's parents were preparing to pay Anita and Cross a surprise visit the following day. The next day, Cross' phone was flooded with messages. Immediately he put his phone on. He saw messages from Anita's parents, asking him to call them as soon as he got their messages. He saw the ones from Omo saying, "Call me, we have a solution to Anita's disturbance." He quickly called Omo. "What do you have?" he asked frantically. "Meet us at Jobo Junction by 8 p.m. We will pick you up there," Omo said over the phone, sounding hopeful. Anita's parents were very mad at Cross, because they did not meet him at home, and Anita said she doesn't know where he went to, crying. How can Cross leave his newly wedded wife alone and be gallivanting around the city with my money since yesterday? I will teach him a big lesson for trying to rubbish the name I have built over the years. What will people say if they hear of this? Anita's father fumed with rage. I will teach him a lesson, since he thinks he can disgrace my daughter, Anita's father said while dialing a number on his phone. Hello Kunter, track Cross down now. I need to know what I am dealing with right now. I need to be sure I can still leave my darling daughter in the hands of a man that walk out of his home, barely few days after his wedding, without letting his wife know where he is going to. Get me a positive result of his location before dawn, Anita's father roared. Cross, who was lodged in a 5-star hotel, didn't know the car he drives has a GPS tracker that is monitored by his company, which is Anita's father's establishment, came out at 7:30 p.m. to go and meet Omo and Franca. But the men who had already found his car, but was waiting for him to come outside, rushed him and covered his face with a bag. He cried for help, but it was too late, as he was pushed into the boot of a car. Meanwhile, Omo and Franca were waiting for Cross at the location they gave him. After waiting for several minutes, they left. I think Cross thinks running can solve this problem, Omo said angrily. They followed the address they were given and arrived at a house that was painted red with a huge white gate. This is so odd. How can a house be looking this creepy? Even though it was dark, they could see a very huge sculpture of a snake that was placed at the front of the gate. Franca became scared and refused to go in. Are you refusing to go in? Do you want Anita to send you to psychiatric hospital first before you know that we need help? Omo's question made Franca to follow her into the gate that was opened the instant they got there. When they got to the door, they were ushered in by a man in his 60s. Wait here, the beautiful one will join you soon. They were so scared because everywhere was lit with red bulb, so you could hardly see clearly. After some excruciating 15 minutes of their lives, a very beautiful young lady, dressed in red from head to toe, joined them. Follow me, she commanded. They both scuttled behind her in fear. When they arrived in an open space, she instructed them to drop an offering first. They quickly did, and she ordered them to remove their clothes and get into a bathtub. They both quickly did. After some minutes, the tub was filled with water. They didn't even see where the water was coming from, because everywhere was red. They were still wondering what was happening, when they heard, "Start bathing now," a voice commanded. When they finished bathing, they gave the lady Anita's personal belonging that they were asked to bring. After a while, the lady called Anita and Anita's spirit came into the house crying. Then she locked Anita in a room and took the key. She will not disturb you again. The water spirit, using Anita's face to deceive people, was only able to it because Anita was following her about. But now that Anita is here, she will become powerless and return to wherever she crawled out from, the lady said authoritatively. How much should we pay you? Omo asked excitedly. Pay me? I don't need your money, your misery is my currency, the lady said and disappeared. Misery? What does she mean? Franca asked, crying. They started shouting at the top of their voices, but after a while, the elderly man came out and asked them to leave. When Omo kept insisting to know what the lady meant, the man simply asked, why did you not ask what it would cost you first, before going through the ritual? They both left around midnight, crying their eyes out. To console themselves, Omo said, if it is something we will be dealing with ourselves without involving anyone or looking like mad persons to people, then we can handle it. Meanwhile, Cross opened his eyes at his parlor when it was close to midnight. They had tortured him for hours to find out why he left Anita alone, but he refused to tell them anything. But immediately he came into his parlor and saw Anita's parents and Anita waiting for him. Anita excused herself and went into her room, but never came out. She disappeared. That was when the ritual took effect. Her father was still shouting at Cross and threatening to lock him up if he doesn't open up and tell him the truth. Just when Cross wanted to open up, Anita's mother, who followed Anita into her room to ask her some things, shouted from upstairs, Anita is gone, I can't find her. Everyone got up, including Cross, and asked, what do you mean she is gone? Just hold on, she may be inside one of the rooms crying, her father and Cross almost said at the same time. Her mother started crying, saying, I saw her go into the master's bedroom and I opened the door immediately after her, but she is neither there nor in the toilet. Kunter and his boys swung into action, rush to the gate and check if she is walking out of the gate. Kunter instructed one of his men. Both of you, check every corner of this house and compound, he told the rest of his men. Within some minutes, everyone came back and gave the same report. We didn't see her. The gate man was called and he also confirmed it because he was on guard at the gate. Cross became relived, maybe Omo and Franca actually took care of Anita, he thought to himself. Anita's father believed she ran away, he insisted that Cross must have done something to her. But when it was morning and Anita was still not found, Cross, who was acting devastated, said, she was the one who asked me to leave, I didn't understand her. Since after our wedding, she has been acting strange until 2 days ago when she told me she got involved with dealers. She said if I didn't leave, her suppliers may take my life when they come to visit her. Cross lied to Anita's parents so smoothly and was able to convince them that their daughter actually disappeared because some bad people were looking for her. Her father sat on the ground, shedding tears like a baby. But she lacked nothing and she was a good girl. What could have pushed my little girl into this kind of life? Her father asked no one in particular. Her parents later thanked Cross and said, you have always loved her so dearly, but you should have called me immediately you found out she got herself into something shady, her father said, looking so vulnerable. Cross, whose heart wanted to explode with joy, but was shedding tears, replied, I wanted to tell you, sir, but Anita begged me to give her time to sort it out. And secondly, I was only finding out a few days ago. She told me even her friends, Omo and Franca, are not aware of this side of her. After a while, Anita's father placed a call to the commissioner of police to report his daughter missing, and maybe in danger. Everyone swung into action to rescue her. Her gate man was also informed of what was happening, and to keep an eye open, in case she shows up anytime. Her father also pleaded with Cross not mention what was going on to anyone, including her friends. When they all left, Cross ran into his room to dance for 10 minutes. His joy was full. He tried calling Omo and Franca all day, but they refused to pick up. He was about to drive out in the evening to visit them and fill them in on how their movement may have solved their problems, when he saw Franca's car coming into his compound. He noticed that they were visibly upset, but waited for them to come in first. But immediately they got closer, Cross started vomiting and gasping for breath. Omo and Franca now smelled like rotten corpse. The smell was so bad that anyone who spends some minutes around them will have an instant reaction towards them, just like Cross did. It took Cross some minutes to stop gasping for air. He then rushed upstairs and asked them to stay down, even though the smell engulfed the entire house, but it was better when you are a bit far from them. What is smelling like that? Cross asked, still covering his nose. Franca broke down crying while Omo explained, I think it's us. What? How is that possible? What happened to both of you? Cross asked so many questions at once. We went to seek solution to Anita's disturbance and this is the result. The lady who cleansed us of her spirit, made us to be smelling like this. We don't know what to do. We have gone back there earlier today, when we discovered how awful we smelled, but the house seemed like where no one had lived for years. It was when we wanted to leave that we saw where they wrote, this house only comes alive to you, when you are invited to come. I have also tried to contact her on Instagram like before, but her profile does not exist anymore. We don't know what to do. Anyone we had met since yesterday reacted even worse than you. How are we going to be living like this? Omo asked and started crying too. Cross asked them to leave, that he would come to see them soon. He also thanked them for their sacrifice. This was how Cross started avoiding them. He made sure they never got into his house again. He warned his gateman never to allow them in again. Franca, who was medical doctor, was asked to stop coming to work. Look for the solution to this problem first, and we will take you back. The hospital management told her. Omo, who was working in the same company with Cross, Anita's father's company, was also asked to stop work and sort herself out. They were lucky the house they were living in was a gift from Anita, if not they would have been homeless. This made them so depressed and sad, but they were angrier at Cross who started avoiding them. He never picked their calls or allowed them into his house. They started threatening to expose him. The first time Cross received their threatening message, he was so angry. Am I supposed to be disturbed by these two or what? I am just getting my life together. I don't need this kind of disturbance. Cross shouted angrily after reading their messages. He then sent some guys to take Omo and Franca out. When they got there, they met Omo at the parlor downstairs, but her shout for help alerted Franca, who was upstairs. Franca jumped from their balcony into another compound and escaped. The men were able to kill only Omo, but they lied to Cross about killing two of them. They dumped Omo's body inside a ditch. Cross was very happy and relieved. I can now live my life without watching my back, he smiled to himself in the mirror. However, Franca was already at the police station to confess. Within minutes after Franca's confession, Anita's father was called. We have a situation that we would like you to witness yourself, the commissioner of police said over the phone. When he heard Franca's confession, he insisted on following the police to where his daughter was buried. When he saw his daughter's corpse, he didn't shed a tear. He quickly left, went to his house and picked his gun. He drove straight to Cross's office, shot him on his two shoulders, kneecap, and locked his office door. Do not open the door until tomorrow, he instructed his staff. Cross died the most painful and slow death, while Franca, who was even begging to be killed due to her smelling condition, was killed by firing squad. In all you do in life, do not hurt people, especially those ones that have been good to you. Nature has a way of fighting for them, even when they don't want to fight you. You will never go free.
Thanks for watching. Please subscribe.